Oh, shit. All right, welcome everybody to the first episode of the You're the Hero podcast, the VSC podcast. I'm just going to grab my water. You can still hear me, but you can't see me. Episode 1 is Blake Thompson. Welcome.
How we going?
Hopefully you all gave him a clap at home. So the point of the You're the Hero podcast, or the VSC podcast, is we're going to share everybody's stories, have a little bit of chat with each other, 20 minutes or so, just finding out where everyone's come from, where they're going, what they've done, and how we got to this point. So Blake, I know a little bit about you, but so you're a plumber, you've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
What else should everybody else get to know about your day-to-day lifestyle before we talk about your training?
I'm 35, nearly 36, 3 kids, work full-time for myself. So trying to run a business, look after kids when I need to, and train can be pretty full on sometimes. But seem to make it fit for the most part. Like, there's some sacrifices you got to make, but.
So for me, I think the question I wanted to ask you really is because your job's quite labour intensive, right?
Yeah.
Like I think everyone thinks of a plumber as just the guy who comes into your house people watching this probably don't think that, but that you just unclog toilets, run taps, and it's 100% not like that, right? Like,
well, that part of the job is definitely there.
Yeah.
But like, especially the company that I am, I do every part of plumbing, so that involves all of it. So quite often I'll spend a whole day digging holes, like just literally dig a hole for 3 or 4 hours, spend an hour putting pipes in that, and then spend another 3 hours
filling the hole back in,
putting some pavers back, whatever. Some days can be very, very labour intensive.
So do you find being fit, because we're not the first place you've trained at, right?
Yeah.
Like when did you? I think you started with us maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm really bad at knowing when people start. By the way, I'm really into like how they're still training with us rather than when it started. But
I started right after the first COVID lockdown, pretty much. So it was like
because we had your brother Luke first, didn't we?
Yeah.
So when did you do? All right. So hang on, don't let me get too far ahead. So you've been with us for at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
How do you find being fit in your job role now? So before you worked for somebody else, so you could be tired, right, at work and sort of drag your feet. Now it's all on you.
Yeah.
Do you find being fitter, training, doing this style of training where you are lifting heavy, training hard, but yet still have to be labour intensive throughout the day? Do you find it a benefit?
I definitely find it a benefit. Like over the years, so I've been plumbing for 20 years, and throughout that time I've worked with a lot of guys that were then now my age, and they were like broken. Like some of them couldn't dig holes anymore. Some of them, they all had problems, and a lot of that revolved around them working as a plumber, doing quite labour intensive stuff without having any other off the job training, if that makes sense. No other body conditioning.
Yeah.
So it took a toll on their body. So I think training definitely helps with what I do. But
because when did you start exercising? Like, go right back. Like, have you always exercised, or did you start to realise like I needed to start doing something at some point?
I've always played sport of some description. So I've always had, I suppose, some form of fitness, but I've never really gone to the gym before. I've tried a couple of times to go to the gym, but never stuck it out over the years. And then it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, Cara started going to F45, and then she won a free membership. So then I started going.
How long was the free membership for you?
3 months, I think.
Okay.
Which, when she first started going, I was pretty against it because it was expensive.
Yep.
And I was like, there's no way that it's worth it. You can't spend that much money a week on a gym membership. It's ridiculous. But then she did it for 3 months and then won that free membership. And then I started. And then after that 3 months, we started paying for 2 memberships, which was a lot. But by that time, I'd realized that it is expensive, but it's worth it. So I did that. We did F45 for a couple of years, I think.
Because with that change, right, I'm going to assume that then with that you go into the gym realizing it's expensive comes in a little bit of a shift in how much you drink or
Yeah.
you get takeaway or something else has to take a
You,
hit, right? So
yeah, you end up spending less money in other areas. Pretty, and it's not even really like you have to intend to do it. It kind of just happens naturally. You start doing more training and more physical activity, and then you do less of other things, whatever that may be. Whether
yeah,
it's drinking, whether it's eating fast food, whether it's playing video games, whatever that you might spend your money on, you sort of have less time to do those things, so you don't spend as much money on them.
yeah, because you end up finding that as a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be it's going to be a natural progression in one area, which is going to have a sacrifice somewhere else, which is
Yeah.
generally going to be a poorer behavior of some description.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that like with that change in lifestyle comes the change in money.
Yeah.
Definitely though, like it can be quite difficult for particularly this style of facility and an F45 or
Yeah.
any other group training in the middle. I had someone the other day be all like, literally had that conversation with someone last week. They were like, how much is it to come and see you? And I was like, oh, it's $62 a week for you.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's very expensive. I was like, yeah, but it's either, where are you now? And they're like, the leisure centre. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
so you're talking $20 to go in and do your own shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No assistance with that.
No assistance, or you can go to a personal trainer, which people are doing that too, which
Yeah.
I don't even know what personal trainers are charging these days. But in my day, it was $45 for half an hour,
Yeah.
and you were getting people 3 times a week. That's
Yeah.
that's $120. That's and now in hindsight, I look at that and go, that's absolute madness that people would
It seems a little bit
do.
more unsustainable.
I think so. It
Obviously,
is, yeah,
every person in every scenario is going to have different abilities in
of
terms of
course.
finances. Like some people are going to be able to afford that, no problem. Other people, it's going to be unsustainable, and they can
I
only
think
do
it
it for
becomes
so long.
difficult though with particularly if you're working locally, you've got young kids and a young family, but yeah, but people coming to terms with that cost adjustment, I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. You've done an Ironman, right? So,
Yes.
and you did that what 3 years ago?
2015.
Stop
No,
it.
no, yeah, it was like 4 or 5 years ago. It was just before I started here,
I was
pretty
gonna say
much.
it can't be 2015. That's like 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah,
Nah, it
that's
wasn't.
right.
Nah, because I think you did that, and then you came here not long after that. Is that right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the year I turned 30. So
Okay.
5 years ago.
So did you do that because you turned 30, or was
Mm,
it the group that you were sort of
It's a little bit
hanging
of
out with was like, let's do this thing?
there's a little bit of a few things. I've grown up in Busselton. The Ironman they used to run past our house when I was a kid. So I'd always seen the Ironman and had always wanted to do it, but knew nothing about it. Essentially, if that makes sense. Like I knew what it was, but didn't know much about how to do one or what's involved or anything. And then there was two other guys at F45 that we all just decided at a Christmas party on the beers that we were going to do the Ironman. And then over Christmas, we all bought bikes and then we trained for a year. Sometimes we trained together, sometimes we trained like separately, but we all trained for a year and then did the Ironman.
So a full 12 months, or did
Yeah,
you get?
it's just under 12
I was
months
gonna
we
say,
trained.
did you do it in September or October?
The Ironman was in October.
Yep. So you had about 10 months.
Yeah, yeah.
How many hours a week did you have to train for something that big?
At the height of it, it was like I had to do at least 20 hours a week of training, whether that was just like going to F45 or riding for 6 hours on the weekend. I had a lot of other things going on at the time, so I had to fit it in where I could in my life. Like in the same year, I trained for the Ironman, was working full time as a plumber, like more than 40 hours a week, and we built a shed and built a salon in that shed for Cara to work out of, which I did like 90% of that work.
So you did that after work or in?
Yeah,
Yeah, after work. Yeah,
outside of
because
work
you were
hours.
working with someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working, and then I would like come home, train a bit, or I'd train in the morning, or both, and then I would like go and work out in the shed, like building stuff in the salon or whatever until 10 o'clock at night, and then the weekends I'd like get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and either go and run 20 or 30k, or I'd go and ride for 6 hours or whatever.
And you guys had Elsa at that point too, right?
In
So
the same year,
in the same year.
halfway through the year, Elsa come along.
Shit, eh?
It was a full-on year.
Yeah, that is a full-on year. Yeah. Fucking hell.
But it was awesome to do it. Like it was a big day, and it did break me to some degree doing the event, but it was also awesome. Like
it's interesting though, I reckon, and you probably would agree with this, like in hindsight, that was probably as much as that was probably one of the hardest working years of your life, it was also probably one of the most rewarding when you look back. You know, it's always like no good story ever starts with a salad. So it's like that, you know, they're always those rock bottom moments like that. Not really rock bottom because you did so much, but when you come out the back end, right, you're like, okay, that sign seal delivered, that's over.
Yeah.
You know, 2019, I'm going to assume this was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it would have been 2019. Yeah, you know, before the descendants of the rest of the world in 2020 when we all had to deal with COVID and all that other crap.
Yes.
You would, yeah. I mean, you probably look at that as like a year where you actually succeeded, right? By committing to something, staying focused.
For sure.
Yeah.
And like there's parts of the year that I don't really like. I can't really remember any of work that year, if that makes sense. Like some parts of the year they were just there, if that makes sense. Like, but other parts of it are pretty big. Like, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people need to realize, like, you know, we're big fans of like doing uncomfortable stuff, but definitely, I mean, like if you're gonna tick off a box of doing an Ironman, you kind of want to do that once, and then living permanently in that life cycle of pain and pleasure is not good for anybody, particularly a young family.
Yeah, it'd be hard to continue to do them year in, year out, or like some people do them 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 a year. Like it would be a very.
But that's all they would do, right? Like they wouldn't be trying to. I think you see a lot of those people where they've either. I think with a young family, you get like one chance at that stuff, or it's what you do, but you don't really do anything else. Like when you're going to do an Ironman, definitely, I think in doing something like a group training, like F45, or even I think VSC would be better than an F45 because it's a complete shift. It's not the high volume elements of it. It would be, but doing something like that, incorporating that with that training, then also alleviates a lot of the injury prevention as well and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you get with a young family, like if you were to say I'm going to do this again, and probably by now, 5 years later, Cara would say, look, sure, but fuck, there's a couple of rules on top of that.
Cara's the kind of person that if I had said I wanted to do it again the next year, she would have said yes.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
But like, that's the most common question I get about the Ironman is like, am I going to do it again? And at this point in time, the answer is no, because the whole reason I did Ironman was because I'd never done it before and I'd always wanted to. I don't have any more purpose to do it.
Nah.
Like if somebody else wanted to do one and wanted someone to do it with, then I would consider it. But
a bit like most things, right? Like the jetty swim, the Margaret River 100, what's that run they do between Dunsborough and Bustleton in the pitch black middle of the night? They run on the sand or something. The Sandman. Yeah. Like these are all things down here that you can do that you really could have a list of tick box
things.
Do them once and then
do them every year.
Yeah.
Like there's the Margaret River Ultra that goes on sections of the Cape to Cape.
Yeah. I think Max Mueller just did that not too long ago.
Yeah.
Brett Baker did that. Yeah. Those ultra big runs, whatever they are, the 80 to 100k runs.
Anything over 50.
Oh.
Which is a lot of running.
In sand too.
Yeah. And all sorts of terrain, like on rocks and blowing ankles.
There'd be parts you got to walk, right? Like there would be parts you got to walk. There'd be parts you got to run. But yeah, that is a good. I mean, that's a good point. That there are so many things you could do at least one off. Like Maddie doing the jetty swim.
Yeah.
You know, now she's talking about doing the Rottnest swim.
Yeah. It's a bit of a step up.
I think in a team though, you know, Reece Anderson just did the jetty swim, and not the GC, the Rottnest swim.
Yeah.
And he ended up he said he did 15 Ks out of the 19 Ks worth of the swim because his mate got seasickness.
Yeah, okay. So
And
he's
then
just
and then they got to the end, and then the boat that they were on, the boat shit itself. So
Oh.
him and his kayak safety buddy, whatever you got to have to finish that
yeah.
off, they got off. They got into Rottnest, and it was just them with no phones, no clothes, no wallets, no nothing, because the boat got towed back to Perth. They didn't tow the boat to Rottnest, and
So
then
they were left with nothing.
so they were left with nothing, and they basically finished. And they so he's finished this swim. This is what he said. He said he finished the swim, and no one was there to greet him.
Yeah.
He had to like ask some mates that also were on another boat for like some cash and some clothes and
To sort some shit out.
Yeah.
'cause their boat's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
But those things, I mean, I'm definitely, like, for me personally, those big feats. I mean, I'm not. They're the two camps that I sit in with. That is, number one, I have no interest in doing any of those things, but I think it's because of the fact that every day I try and do something that's just like, I think being consistent in a lifestyle is actually a bigger challenge than those sort of big things. But I agree with
Yeah.
you on that too. Like, if you've lived in Bustleton forever, yeah, if you're born and bred here and you kind of don't at least do that, or the jetty swim, or I mean, you've done the jetty swim, you've done
Well, I've never done the jetty swim.
No, but you get to do it anyway because the Ironman is it.
Well, we didn't go around it, but it's the same distance.
Oh, you didn't go around it. Did they
No,
make you swim up the wall?
You go like out and then under and swim along the beach and then back around. And they do that purely because there was 1 or 2 years they had to cancel the swim because of sharks. So
Because they were so deep out. Yeah.
Yeah, so they just go, nah, it's too, because it's a like part of the Ironman full roster.
Keep it the same.
They don't want to cancel the swim.
Yeah, fair enough.
So they just keep it closer to the shore. There's less chance of sharks coming in then. So it's the same as swimming around the jetty, but didn't actually swim around the jetty. But that also doesn't. The idea of swimming around the jetty doesn't really. I don't know. I don't get that as a concept because I've spent most of my childhood and even a lot of time as an adult swimming at any point of the jetty, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
We went out over the school holidays just gone with our kids and went and snorkeled at the end of the jetty. Like, yeah, I don't know. I've never thought about swimming around the end of the jetty like that.
I think it's just one of those things that you either do the Ironman or you do that.
Yeah.
You do the marathon too. There's the marathon run, the one that they can do. The one they can do the day before the jetty swim. What's that one?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's
Was that
called.
a half or something? Yeah. You've got. I think they're the three main sort of things. Or that Sandman 1000 or whatever it is, or 100.
It's 100 Ks.
Yeah.
Or 80 Ks or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember. We looked at doing that at one point as well, but I never did. I was like, after the Ironman, I sort of took a bit of a step back a little bit.
Well, because the guy that you were doing it with, right? We won't mention his name because he might get mad, but he's notoriously known for doing those sort of things.
Yeah, that's right.
And drumming up a big cohort of support crew, and then as soon as one thing finishes, he goes and does the next thing.
Yeah,
which is totally fine for him.
Like, yeah. But I couldn't stay in that amount of training for that long.
Personally for me, that's why I always think like those things are great, but you're better off just to have can you hold on to a consistent training regime that is able to be done for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years rather than one big event. I think those events need to be ticked off, but how long can you do those big events for?
How long can you train for 20 plus hours a week?
Well, also, what else gets sacrificed?
Full time, and you've got to spend time with your family and all those things. You can't. You do have a limit as to how much you can physically fit in.
Because that's where you and I both are similar, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, what hit would your 3 kids get now if you tried to go and do 6 hours on a Saturday? Like, we've been training at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning purely so you can still be there at their games, right?
Yes, that's right. You miss out on sports. You miss out on a lot of things.
Purely for your own thing.
Whereas when I did it, they weren't old enough to be playing sports.
No, and you wouldn't have missed out on much at that point. Like, Cara probably could have had a bit of help with the 3, with the baby. Yeah, I mean, when you've got a baby, but if Elsa wasn't walking at that point, Ashton would have been 4, 3, 4?
He was 2.
2, all right, yeah, nah.
and then Eli was 4.5.
Yeah, that would have been a tough gig.
Yeah.
Go Cara, tough gig for her. So we'll see where we go with this part. But so you're the most physically active in your family, right?
Yes.
So another thing that we both share is that we're both really the physically active people in our families.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't have family members that don't do the stuff and the thing, but I know your brother Luke used to train here.
Yes.
He trained here before you trained here.
Yeah.
Then you came along with Luke, I remember, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
for
on
a Father's Day
or something.
workout
Yeah.
where I just randomly said, bring any fathers. And then I think you were, and naturally at that point too, in that transition period that people forget, like we're the next level past those other training methodologies.
Seems to be a bit of a natural progression. Like
Yeah.
where I was before at F45, I'd started, I don't know, just started plateauing sort of. I wasn't finding the enjoyment, I suppose. I don't know. Like I just reached this point and had sort of just stagnated there.
I think people are going to, those of you, as you watch this, you're going to see that sort of come as a natural progression of the conversations we're going to have, because I've got Brendan Pratt coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk to Brendan tomorrow as well. Same story. I plan on talking to both Cara and Gemma very, very shortly. I haven't really overbooked anybody yet, but I think you'll see a natural progression. That's not going to be the plan for today of this whole podcast at all, to be like, that's a natural progression. But people are going to see that this becomes a natural progression from whatever they were doing before. Like a lot of people who start here have either been running outdoors before, they've been training by themselves before, they've trained with others.
Yeah.
A lot of those natural progressions do come about. But yeah, sorry. So you were training at F45 before, and then you sort of were ready, looking for the next thing. And you'd done your Ironman by this point, well and truly. By about a year, I think.
We'd well and truly done the Ironman,
Yeah.
and I'd like sort of had not time off, but really pulled back for a couple of months after the Ironman. It took me a long time to recover from that day, like at least a month, to be able to train again and get my heart rate up properly without my body sort of just freaking out.
Yeah, right.
So like after that, and then I'd started training a bit more again at F45, but just wasn't sort of feeling it, just ticking along. And then Luke started coming here, and then I'd come here a few times. I've been to a place in Dunsborough a couple of times with another mate, just similar sort of, it's not the same as here, but similar to here, just trying different things. And then, eventually after that first COVID lockdown, Cara was like pretty much, she was going to come here just before, and then like signed up, and then everyone had to close.
Yeah.
And then, so when it opened up again, we both started here.
Did she already have friends here? I can't remember how Cara started here, or whether it was a similar sort of thing. I think she might have been similar. I think everyone at that point, Luke came here because he didn't want to go there, and Luke lived right next door to here too, until he then started training out somewhere else as well.
Yeah.
Again, after much of the lockdowns where we were sort of like hands tied, things sort of a lot of stuff got taken out of our own control around that time.
Yeah, it's just a weird time in general.
And I remember when Luke moved on as well, was when I was having a
Luke moved out of the country before COVID.
Oh shit! So he must have gone over there in 2019 then. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he literally got to the UK.
That's right, and then they locked him all down probably
before COVID really was a thing at all. And then he was going to travel around for 6 months to a year, and then find somewhere to work.
He got stuck pretty much as soon as he landed, didn't he?
He had a couple of weeks of somewhat free movement. And then, he was in Liverpool, I think, in a hostel, and they come in and were like, we have to close. You have to get out. We can't have you here. So they kicked him out, and he had nowhere to live in a foreign country where you couldn't fly home from.
Fuck.
And he managed to stick it out. He found somewhere to live, stuck it out. Lived in a hostel in London for 2.5 years. Yeah.
That's crazy, eh?
It's definitely a life I wouldn't have come out of as well as he has, if that makes sense. I suppose you never know how you'd come out of something out of something that tests you until you've experienced it.
I think stuff like that. I think stuff like that, as an outsider looking in, you look at that and go like, I couldn't do that. But yeah, if it came up, you would. I mean, he'd probably say the same thing about you doing the Ironman. Like I would. I'd be like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't imagine doing something like that with a 6-month-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 4.5-year-old. My wife would be. I think my wife would say, yeah, that's great, that's fine. But when it's all over and said and done with, she'd be like, your turn.
Yeah. I mean, like, Cara was one of the main reasons why it ended up happening, like why I ended up doing it, because I had spoken about it, and I'm not very good at actually doing anything, if that makes sense. I'll talk shit about doing stuff all the time, but very rarely will just be like, yep, I'm going to go do that. But she was pretty much, she found a bike for me to buy. She was like, you should go and buy this bike.
Yeah, sick.
And
so she was all in too. That's so
she
cool.
was like,
that's so cool.
Do it.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't letting me not do it. She was very, pushing me along, encouraging, supportive, for sure.
And that's what you want too, a lot of the time, no matter what you're going to do, right? Like whether it is continue training here,
or like quitting my job and
quitting your job, having that person. They always, Maddie and I always talk about this. It's like everyone always says, be careful who your friends are, but it's like really the most important thing is like who you marry, or more important than that, who you have kids with. That's the hardest thing.
And it can be really easy from a comfortable position yourself when somebody else comes to you and says, I'm thinking about doing this crazy thing, whatever it may be, whether it's quitting your job, starting a business, whether it's doing an Ironman or whatever. But from your comfortable position, it's very easy for you to go, well, like, I don't think that's a good idea because of this and this and this. Like, you see from your perspective where you're comfortable and you're like okay with what's going on in your life to some degree, so you don't look at the other sides of what it is that they might be doing, and you won't look at the other positives they might get from making those decisions. You would just be like, no, it's way safer just to stay doing what you're doing, or just don't do that thing, or whatever it is.
But you guys work like a team like that anyway, right? Like she's had a few times, like you said, you built the salon, you don't use the salon anymore.
No.
She's not a hairdresser anymore. She was a coach, gymnastics coach. She's not doing that anymore. She's trying to do the EA stuff right now. Like, but you're there supporting her anyway, right? Which is,
and I've got a lot better. Like at the start, I struggled a lot with things changing a lot. Like I've had one job since I left school. I left school to do what I do, and I do that now. And that's it. I've had different like jobs in that career, but I've only ever had that career.
Yeah. She's
had like 4 or 5 careers in that time frame. But yeah, it's never been an issue. Every time she changes to a different career or a different job, she does that well and succeeds at it, and it's all fine. So like I've got used to the idea of just supporting through whatever it is that her next idea is, or helping her come up with the best way to approach that goal or that idea or that career change.
Yeah, I'll talk to her about this, but I think as an outsider looking in, like she's got a lot better now at even asking for your help and leaning on that. I mean, I've known her for 4 years, and she's been and gone, come and gone, but now, but because of her trying to level out where she's going and what she wants to do and what's working and what's not. And then I think now she's in a position anyway, because of your support, the way that you two have worked together. And again, I'm only an outsider looking in, so it could be completely different. But, I think she's quite now locked in on, she's enjoying her working. She's enjoying training now.
Yeah.
She's very consistent. She's one of our top athletes as a female too, just FYI, mostly because of her gymnastics background and her skill capacity. But
her body never forgets that.
No, but she's still strong too. She's strong. She's capable. She's also fit in regards to conditioning. So, that's, I think, a big thing that you both share and have always supported each other with that sort of thing as well. So that's kind of cool. It is cool, actually. It's not kind of, it's really cool.
Yeah.
That you can have that support network, both for a big thing like doing an Ironman or changing a job and stuff like that, but the day-to-day support or the network. I'm sure you told her we were going to come do this today, and she's like, okay, cool. bit like,
Yeah.
Maddie's like, we can go in together. I was like, no, we can't because I got Blake at 7. She's like, why are you guys training at 7? I was like, no, we're not training. We're podcasting at 7.
Yeah.
So what do you mean?
When I told her I was
Yeah.
doing it, she was a bit surprised because it's not something I'm like overly comfortable with doing, and it was definitely like it's something I've thought about potentially doing for a long time, but have never. It's like everything, I just don't do anything about it. I think about it a lot, but never make any steps towards it. And then I was just like, nah, I'm like gonna do it differently this time. I'm gonna actually just go, yep, I'll do that thing and then see how it goes. If it goes well, then it goes well. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. What does it matter?
Well, I think at this age, I think you start to look back, right? Because again, you'd be in this. I mean, Eli's a bit older than Lakin, but you start to look and go like, all right, what do I need to do for these guys so that I can then quickly say to them, to help them with what they need to step into. Because if they're going to be like, I don't want to do, I don't know, whatever, show and tell or whatever they call that shit, whatever it can be.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to be the person who does the assembly or something like that. You want to be all like, you know what, I get it, but,
you just got to put yourself in those.
Yeah, Dad just did a podcast like, hey, there's going to be a whole story out on the internet for until forever. Like 6 people.
I told Eli.
Yeah, but 6 people will watch this.
Now?
Yeah, 100, yeah, right. Yeah. But like 6 people will watch this, and that's fine. But that's 6 people who didn't know what you did before.
That's right.
And then next time we do this, we might have 30 views, and that's 30 people who don't understand what a 35-year-old dad with 3 kids runs a business. Like, what do you need? Like, whatever they think they're going through. We're all going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I always I went last year when we went to Blink 182 with a mate, and he, we're all drinking and stuff, and he ends up locking himself in the room, and he's like, "You guys don't understand. I've got a teething." Or at that point, they must have been 8 or 9 months. Anyway, he's like, "You don't understand. I've got a teething 9-month-old," and I'm like, "Dude, I've got
done this.
I've got the same thing at home. Like, what do you mean? Like, I've got the exact same thing." And at the moment, there's a lot of parents here with just under 2-year-olds that we're all dealing with the tantrums, the kicking, the screaming, the thing. You guys are now the experienced ones on the back end of that, dealing with the pre-kindies and the...
Yeah, starting to deal with a whole different side of...
Yeah. Your kids are out of nappies now.
Yeah, it's all done. Like nearly out of car seats.
Like,
it's mad.
Yeah.
They're all in proper school, like year 1, 3, and 4 school. It's insane to see where we've come from and where we're at now. Like, it was a hard slog for a long time when they're young, especially having so many so close together, so young, is definitely challenging, but you don't know anything else when you're in it, and you just get through it.
Yeah, so for people that are watching or listening or, just scrolling and then realize they come across this when they're looking at the newsfeed, I mean, I don't know, is there anything you can pass on to those people to think about, like, how I know what I want to tell them. I want to tell them, like, you had a plan, you had a dream, execute, go for it. How can you get a teammate to work together? I mean, I like what you guys have there. Like you said, whenever you come up with this idea, it's like you've got the support, you've got the network, you've got all those sort of things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that in the moment, right? It doesn't. Nah. Just because you've got the support doesn't mean you feel like you can constantly rely on that.
Yeah, that's right. You don't. Every day doesn't feel the same. Like, every day doesn't. There's days where things don't go well, and there's days that things do go well. We don't always see eye to eye. We don't always get along. We still argue. We still disagree on a lot of stuff, and sometimes we can't come to an agreement on things as well. Like, it goes on forever, but it doesn't change that we know that we still need to work together, even if we don't see eye to eye on something or agree that that's what we should be doing. We both understand that sometimes we still just have to do it, whatever that may be, like, regardless of whether or not you think it's a good idea. Sometimes you just have to step back and go, well, we're going through it anyway, so we'll see what happens, like, and just support as much as you can for whatever that may be. Like, yeah. That's the main thing. Hey, like just whatever it is, supporting, even if it's something that you like strongly disagree with, but there's a reason why it has to go ahead that way. You just have to put your pride away, swallow it, and just be there for whatever that may be.
Do you guys put training or exercising as one of those big factors now in your daily go-to sort of tick boxes as a couple? So, like, again, if to use the Saturdays as an example, you come in and do the 6 o'clock. We work out at 6 so that you can get that done before the boys have basketball.
Yeah.
But Kara's been doing the 9:15. I don't know if she did this week. I don't think she did, but
No, this week she didn't. She was working, doing a wedding, like the
yeah,
last
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But generally, like that's the sort of that allows you guys to cross communicate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that part of something that you guys are like? Well, I'm going to training today. It's like, okay, cool. Well, then I'll take that, and then or this will happen,
It's a
or that'll
discussion we'll
happen.
have.
Yeah,
Like it'll be like, this is what I was wanting to do. This is what we've got going on. Like basketball's at this time, and I'll be like, I thought maybe I'll do this early in the morning, and then you come to the gym with the kids. I'll take the kids and start basketball, and then you can do some part of training, and then come to basketball, and then that way we both get to work out to some degree, and we both get to go to basketball.
yeah. So you have that conversation in advance. It's not like you wake
Yeah.
up in the morning and go, "I'm doing this," and then
No.
she goes, "Well,
Yeah.
fuck, I was going to do this," and then
Yeah. No, it's always a pre-planned, or like we have a conversation about it, and it's the same with anything like that. We've always got to figure out how we do things around the kids, around other things we've got going on, and so on and so forth. Same with like day-to-day training during the week. Typically, I do the early class, and then she does the next class after. But it doesn't always work that way. Mondays are different. Sometimes other days during the week might be different for whatever reason. So we always discuss.
Blake sleeps in,
Yeah.
doesn't wake up to his alarm till
Yeah.
till 4:28.
Yeah. Or yeah. Or
4:59. Fuck.
yeah. Damn it. Or one of us or both of us might want to do like Ollie or the cardio ward in the afternoon or whatever, and then we'll figure out how we do that. Whether we take the kids with us, whether one person goes and the other doesn't. There's always a give and take in the way of figuring out how you fit training in.
But it gets done.
Hmm.
But it gets done.
It's got to get done.
I don't know if I'll keep asking this question to everybody, but sort of episode 1, we can explore this really, really quickly. So when you came to Vast Strength and Conditioning, what were you looking for your training? And then now that you've been here for this long, what have you found is how has VSC served you? How has it changed your perspective, views, or basically have you got what you came looking for in the first place?
Yeah, I've found, like, in terms of my mental health, training regularly is a big part of it. Like staying in a good, positive, like mental position is a big part of training. Is a big part of how I do that. Like if I don't come to the gym if I'm sick or if I've got a few days where I can't go to the gym or whatever, I do start to like decline in that regard. So that's probably one of the main differences from before to after. But I think a lot of what you do here, there's a lot of skill progressions inside that fitness progression, if that makes sense. So like you've got obviously general fitness, which you can get in so many different ways. But then there's so many different sections of different kinds of skills, whether it's something on the rig, whether it's handstand stuff, whether it's lifting with a barbell. There's so many different areas where you can have little wins, little like progressions forever, like moving forwards. And that I think is very good and big as well. Like,
Which is what you're looking for when you move from general fitness to
be honest, I don't really know what I was looking for. Like I just knew that where I was at was not what I wanted, and I wanted to try something else. I
Yep.
didn't know much about CrossFit as a whole before I started. I didn't, never really heard much about it. Didn't know what the CrossFit Games was. Couldn't have told you who a single CrossFit athlete is. Anything along those lines. Like, knew nothing about it. But since I've started, and as I've done it more and more and more, it's become more and more a part of what it. Like now, we will watch most of the like streamed competitions that are like on over the world, and we watch it with the kids. The kids absolutely love it. Like they know who so many different CrossFit athletes are. Like when we went to the competition in Perth the other week, they were talking to Thor, telling him how they watch him on TV, and all sorts of stuff like that. So
who is just a local guy, right?
Yeah.
But you watch him in the Down Under CrossFit Championships, and it makes them
realise a little bit that it's potentially achievable, if that makes sense. Like he's just a regular guy. That's something that, like you just said, but he's just a regular guy that trains really hard, puts a lot of effort in, still has a full-time job,
runs a gym, has 2 kids, has a young wife.
Kids, all those things.
Yeah.
But is it in a position where he can compete in some, what I would say, some level of professional competition.
Yeah.
Like level. It gives that. It's a good example for kids to realise that whether it's CrossFit or not, it doesn't matter. Like it could be CrossFit, it could be sport, it could be uni, it could be anything. Everybody that they look at that has done really well in that was just a regular person to begin with, and that they can do things to get to that point if they try.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think we should leave it there because I think we went over the 20-minute mark by 20 minutes.
Just a little bit.
All right. Thanks for today. That'll be episode 1. That'll be going up Wednesday.
Yep.
So we'll release them on Wednesdays. But I think we did all right. I don't think we can.
Put it on for my kids.
Yeah. I don't think we needed. I don't think we need to delete anything except maybe next time I might change the lighting situation.
Yeah.